Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. And today we are back with similar things that we usually discuss on this channel, and there is no point to explain that, I guess. So we've been opening up the topic of relationship from the last 3 videos, and I would like to go forward with it, but at the same time I thought maybe it's also nice to take something a little bit different but also include relationship in it to give a bit of freshness to what we are discussing. Otherwise, if constantly a similar topic is just repeated, then the brain can feel a little bit tired of it. So what we would take today is the aspect of looking at how our brain handles the concept of relationship, and in general this pattern of the brain to live with cycles or loops or habits, whatever you want to call it. And we would like to see how the brain lives with it. Then we can also ask why the brain lives with it. So the central argument is that the brain likes to live with patterns. The brain likes to live with cycles, and we can see it in our everyday life. Our whole life is generally a pattern. The way we have designed life around ourselves, we hardly do something which we are not aware of or which we do not know of. We are usually doing things which are very familiar to us, and that is why also we like to plan our life. We like to plan the structure of our life. We like to structure it in a way where we get the maximum amount of satisfaction, maximum amount of happiness, pleasure, whatever you want to call it. And we want to maximize that happiness or pleasure. And then we try our best to control this structure of our life. So let's open it up a little bit with examples, as examples work more with a large amount of people, or most people understand with examples. It's very rare to find someone who understands with the fact and doesn't require an example. So the fact that we are looking is that we are in the state of living with patterns. The brain is in the state of living with patterns. You could observe that how the brain likes to wake up in a similar time, which is your waking up habit. The brain starts to fall sleepy at the similar time. Of course, we can start nitpicking and trying to specify some exceptions, but we are not doing that. We are talking from a very general point of view, which applies to a lot of people. Okay, we are trying to include as many people as we can. So the brain tries to live with the pattern of how and when it wants to wake up, when it feels sleepy, then what kind of dreams it's having. And after we are awake, we have the similar pattern of life. We will brush our teeth and do the morning rituals, get the breakfast, go to work, do the same kind of work. Most people do the same work every day, and which is called speciality, which is why they are called experts of that thing. So in a way, being an expert also makes sure that you are living in a pattern. People will complain about this. People will say, no, even though I'm an expert, I deal with different kind of things, which is somewhat correct, but the general approach is the same thing. Like, one is a consultant, then he's always consulting, and he's consulting with different products and this and that. And I'm not saying there is no variety in there, but still, a teacher is always teaching every day. A gardener is always cutting the leaves in the garden. So this is the way of how the day is divided during the work. You would see then we also have similar patterns of coming in the evening at home. We prefer to follow the same roads which we usually travel. We don't find it comfortable if we have to take a new road which we are not used to, which may be due to some construction or some other reasons. Then when we are home, we spend our evenings in the same way. We try to book some time for the kids. If you have kids with your family, then you try to do some of the things which you like, maybe watch a TV series or whatever. And then comes the time where the brain wants to sleep again, and the brain goes to sleep. So the whole life is totally designed in a loop, okay? And we have discussed it many times on the channel, where we have said that this living with loops create a big problem of boredom eventually. That even though you don't see it, but you start to become dissatisfied with this kind of loop life. And then you demand a change, which is usually the reason for going for a holiday, for example, that you want to go to travel, to see a new city, to see a new culture, taste some new food. And that is all the result of your expectation or your feeling that, yes, now I want to change from the loop. So we can clearly see that this habit of living in loops by the brain, in patterns, gives a kind of comfort to the brain. The brain feels comfortable because it knows already how the day is going to be. Okay? The brain knows that it's not going to be faced with a shock, a sudden shock. But it also comes with the price of that. When you live this kind of life for a long time, let's say months, okay, then comes a stage of when you're not satisfied with this pattern every day. So you start to question the pattern by going to a holiday, or, I don't know, doing something, bungee jumping, adventure sport, or some other kind of thing that you would really prefer to do. And in a very general way, if you don't like this loop, then you try to go to some other loop. That's what we do. We have one pattern that we really like to focus on, and from that pattern we move on to a new pattern, because now the new pattern feels a bit fresh for some time. For some time it feels like, okay, it's interesting, it's nice, and this. But we clearly neglect the fact that essentially whenever we try to do something new, the brain is essentially trying to put that new in a pattern again. Okay? The brain will like that there is a freshness, there's a newness in the new, but it also wants to put it in a pattern again. Why? Because in the pattern there's a feeling of security. There's a sense of that I know what's going on. I'm not in a wild situation where I do not know myself what the hell is going on. So the brain is totally comfortable with living in patterns, because it gives it a sense of, yes, everything is under control. But at the same time, we see it also comes at a price of being tired of that pattern. And then you see that it wants to change the pattern. So that becomes our life. That's why people call this important and boring phrase that people use a lot, that is a new chapter of my life, a new of this. These new chapters of life are basically the new patterns that you are setting up. You change the job and you go to a new city, and your brain starts to make a new pattern in that city. So essentially, from the brain's point of view, nothing new is happening because the brain is making patterns on day 1, day 2, day 3, and even if you do bring something new, a new style of living, the brain accepts that style and again starts to make it in another pattern. Okay, and this is nothing hidden. You can easily observe it in your life that the brain would want to put things in pattern. So is it really worth living in the pattern, or should we break all the patterns, or what is the right thing to do? Now, if you have observed your body, the heart, the organs, the other organs, they're all working in patterns. Okay? The heart already knows what rhythms to put under what condition, and it follows the laws. When the body wants more oxygen, it starts to pump faster. When you're relaxed, it slows down. So it has its own rhythm, its own pattern. All the body parts have their own rhythm and pattern. And the brain is also a part of the body. So maybe that is why it also wants to have a rhythm and a pattern. Because in rhythm and pattern is where it feels safe, like all the other parts of the body. So the problem the brain faces is that when it tries to find that security, it gets bored of it. So should it not try to find that security? Well, in some cases it is needed. Some patterns are really important for us. For example, the patterns of how to walk. Your muscles know the pattern of how to move. Your brain knows how to control the muscles and how to write, how to speak the language. So this kind of patterns are actually quite important, right? But I think when patterns are applied on how to live life, how to execute life, okay, then comes the problem. Because then whole life starts to become a pattern. Instead of my body being a pattern, all of my life starts to become a pattern. And when that happens, I like it for some time, but in few months, 6 months, every person has a different length for it. And then you start to feel unsatisfied and you're like, okay, I have to do something. And then everyone finds a way. Some people turn to alcohol to feel something different. Some people turn to drugs. Some people turn to sugar. Some people turn to caffeine, tea, whatever, because the boredom is quite painful for the brain. So the brain wants a pattern, but it also doesn't want boredom, which is a very tough balance to execute, so as to say. So how do we get this balance where the brain lives in pattern, but also it finds a newness, okay? And that is the central question of meditation, actually. I have put the central question of meditation from a fresh point of view for you. I haven't used the classical terms. I haven't used the classical literature's terminologies that really you are bored of them because you've heard so much of them. So I've put it in a different context, in a fresh context, because the brain likes to be fresh. So how is it possible that the brain can have a pattern and also not feel bored of that pattern? That's actually the crux of the problem. Now, if you would see, I do not know how closely you have observed yourself, that every action you do, okay, the brain wants to make it a pattern. For example, if today you will drink a sweet drink in the evening, you're not drinking, let's say, a soft drink in the evening, but today you do it, okay? Now, naturally you would see that the next day there would be a very little bit, not a strong, but a very minor desire to repeat that action, okay? If you do it again the second day, then by third day and fourth day, you would start to see that the desire becomes more observable, more stronger, that yes, now you really want to have that drink again. And this is not just about because it's sugar and it's addictive, but it can be seen with any kind of action in general. That if you do an action many times, then that action becomes a part of that the brain wants to make that action a part of daily life. Okay, because somehow the brain is not able to decide whether the action is good for it or it's not good for it. In a way, it decides it. For example, the brain would say, yes, I like the taste of this soft drink, okay? But it would neglect the fact that the amount of sugar in the soft drink is not actually healthy for it. So it ignores that fact. So the brain, in a way, makes a decision of drinking the soft drink every day, but it lacks to see the fact that it's not healthy for it. So my whole point of saying all this is that every action you do every day, the brain tries to make a pattern of it. Okay? So be very aware before making any action. Anything you do, anything you execute, the brain would want to make it a pattern. Okay? And then later you would face the problem of breaking the pattern, because now you've entered the pattern, now you have to break it. So let's say you are sitting somewhere and your friend says, hey, would you like to try this cigarette that I'm smoking? And out of curiosity you say, okay, I will try. What happens just to try it once? Again, that one action that you take, there's a chance that the brain might want to repeat it the next day. Okay? Now, we have taken two examples of sugar and nicotine. Both are kind of addictive, and you might say I'm being biased. So let's take another action of taking a walk. If you have a habit to take a walk in the lunchtime, when you're doing your office, you have your lunchtime, but you finish your lunch in 30 minutes and you still have 10-15 minutes, and you take a walk and you come back to your work. And you would see that if you do it once or twice, the third day, naturally, you would want to take the walk again. Or there will be a little bit desire, at least a thought would come to your mind that yes, I should do it. So the brain tries to put everything in patterns, desperately, very, very desperately. So any action you take, be very, 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 very cautious of taking actions, because anything you do, there is a chance that it might start to become your pattern. Okay? So there's a danger to this habit of brain, that it wants to make everything a pattern. But on the other hand, you could also take advantage of it, that if you put good things there, for example, you go to the gym, you go for a run, you read a book, okay, you watch good content on YouTube, like our channel. I'm sorry. So then that also becomes brain's habit. Okay, so usually we pick the stuff which is easy to do, which gives more pleasure, and which is giving more kind of this satisfaction, dopamine effect, and that leads to getting the brain making patterns of those things in our lives, and then those patterns become quite strong eventually. But you could also do this on the other things. You could actually make other patterns which are more simpler and more profitable for you, so as to say. Now, is it possible to live without patterns? Well, at some level, as we said, we need those patterns. I want a pattern for my heart. I want a pattern for my brain to remember how to walk, how to write, how to speak. Okay? But do I need patterns for my life? Now, that's a very different question. Okay? Some people would say they like that their life is in a pattern, that they wake up at the same time, they do the same job, and then they do the same things in the evening, and they like this kind of living. That's one thing. But from the point of view of our channel, from the point of view of meditation, it is very much required that we try to be free of these patterns. Okay? Not physical body patterns, but psychological patterns. The patterns of me trying to control the life in a certain way. The ego, essentially the brain is just an instrument. The ego is making those patterns, okay? Which is all, the ego is like the software running in the brain, and that software is making the patterns. And the brain is the hardware. So we from the point of view of meditation, the understanding of the ego comes from the understanding of these patterns of life, because the ego has made them. So once you understand those patterns, you know how the ego is operating. And then you can tackle the ego in a much more sensible way, because now you understand it much more. So in meditation, yes, the central question comes that how to be free of these psychological patterns. And like any investigation, the first thing is to observe it, as always. Without knowing what I am dealing with, what I'm facing, I cannot do anything about it. So the first thing we need to execute is to observe that the brain is making those patterns in our daily life. And then you can see why the brain is doing that. Then you see the brain is doing it to feel comfortable, to feel safe. And then you ask, but can I not give the brain a sense of security without the patterns? Are the patterns really needed to feel safe? Can I not feel safe without any of those patterns? Okay, so that would be maybe for the next time when we meet again next week. And I hope you would try to see this pattern in your life and connect it even to relationship, because that's what we do. The relationships become pattern. You meet one person, after some time the pattern breaks, you break up, you go to the next person, wake up. So the loop goes on. So observe these patterns in your life. And once you've observed them, it becomes much easier to do something about them. Okay? If you have some comments, please write to me in the comment box, and I would try to reply to them. I have one comment, I know, from the last video. I have to reply to it, and I would definitely do that. Please don't assume I have forgotten it. If the viewer is watching, then yes. And that would be all for today. Thank you very much.